We begin in Israel, where U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has arrived at a moment when anger is boiling across the Middle East. This follows Israel's dramatic attack on Tuesday, which targeted Hamas leadership in Doha. Rubio's visit had actually been planned well before that strike in Qatar, a strike that killed several lower-ranking Hamas members. Hamas insists, however, that its leadership survived. Now, Secretary Rubio has made it clear Washington was not happy with Israel's actions. He says he wants to understand what impact the strike will have on the ongoing efforts to free hostages in Gaza. Qatar, meanwhile, has reacted furiously. After emergency summits at the United Nations this week, Doha has convened a high-level meeting of Gulf leaders on Monday to discuss possible reprisals. Our correspondent in Jerusalem, Wyra Davis, reports that tensions have escalated further following a very heated phone call between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier this week. According to reports, Trump sharply rebuked Netanyahu over that audacious strike in Doha, especially as the two were discussing Trump's peace and ceasefire proposals for the war in Gaza. The Americans made their disapproval very clear, and Rubio repeated that sentiment before setting out for Israel. Still, he emphasized that the United States continues to support Israel's objectives in Gaza, namely bringing the hostages home and defeating Hamas. But Washington is also deeply concerned. The war is dragging on, and a ceasefire remains elusive. To that end, Israel has stepped up its military campaign in Gaza. Just this morning, another evacuation order was issued for Gaza City, signaling the likely demolition of yet another tall, high-rise building. So, the war is intensifying. The fighting continues. And despite Washington's private frustrations, don't expect much public criticism of Israel from Secretary Rubio during this visit. Prime Minister Netanyahu has argued that Tuesday's strike would remove the main obstacle to ending the war. But at a massive rally in Tel Aviv last night, families of hostages accused Netanyahu himself of being that obstacle. And here lies the heart of the crisis. There is no ceasefire process. No peace process. The hostages remain in captivity. Hundreds of thousands of Gaza residents are displaced, fleeing their homes. Qatari officials have openly said the Doha strike made it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to secure any deal for hostage release. One grieving mother declared that Netanyahu had, in effect, handed her son a death sentence. That sentiment was echoed loudly at last night's protest in Tel Aviv. Families fear that as the war grinds on, their loved ones' lives hang by a thread. Looking ahead, Gulf leaders meet Monday to consider possible reprisals. And this is a critical concern for Washington. The United States maintains close ties with Qatar, including a massive American airbase on Qatari soil. The fallout from this crisis could disrupt U.S. regional strategy. Donald Trump, for his part, is trying to push trade deals and expand accords with Arab nations. Any reversal of those deals, including the Abraham Accords, would deal a serious blow to U.S. diplomacy. And then there's the broader geopolitical context. Israel has been stepping up operations against its opponents. Meanwhile, allies like Britain, France, Spain, and Canada are now openly preparing to recognize a Palestinian state at the upcoming UN General Assembly. That move has infuriated both Washington and Tel Aviv. Israel has even threatened partial or full annexation of the occupied West Bank. Such a step would not only kill any chance of a two-state solution, but also spark major regional repercussions, diplomatic, political, and possibly military. And so, Marco Rubio arrives at an incredibly tense and dangerous moment. His mission? To manage, or at least navigate, a thicket of diplomatic challenges with no easy solutions. This is a story that continues to develop rapidly, and one that carries enormous consequences far beyond the region. Backhand index pointing right, what do you think about these escalating tensions? Could Rubio's visit help calm the crisis, or will it only deepen division?